What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the One More Rep podcast. I'm your host. My name is Joseph Percher. With me again, new co-host Austin Brown. Before we get rolling, I want to encourage you guys, and thank you for listening. I want to encourage you to leave a comment to us, like the video, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so that you're notified every time we put up a new video. Um, Austin, what's up, man? How are you?
Oh, pretty good, man. Just trying to stay warm up here. It's very cold where I'm at up near Madison, Wisconsin. So
Yeah,
it's
no
that's
kidding.
pretty much it right now. Is just staying warm.
Yeah, that's quite the
Unlike you.
contrast. Yeah, that's quite the contrast to Tampa. Um, but like we were talking about this a little bit before we started the recording. Those cold weather states, man, and having to tough out like a rough winter, shoveling your car out to be able to go to the gym and all this, it breeds kind of a different type of bodybuilder, kind of a blue collar
Yeah,
mentality. I mean, it always reminds me of like the Dorian quote where he said like, he's
yeah,
out here
yeah.
trudging through the snow and everybody in California driving in the sunshine I'm going to make them pay. Like that's what living in Jersey, I always kind of went back to that quote.
Wasn't that kind of a thing back then? Was like kind of the East Coast bodybuilders and West Coast guys, and they, like the because those were the two hubs then. It was Los Angeles and then they had Bevs and stuff in New York. So I feel like those were the two big camps then.
It still is. I mean, the
To a degree,
Northeast
yeah,
is definitely a hub of bodybuilding. I mean, it's such a competitive area. Like there's so many like type A people thrust into such a small little environment. So it ends up just being really competitive and you get a lot of really good bodybuilders. It's funny how many people, like I go to MI40 down here in Tampa, and
yeah,
it's funny how many people that live here are originally from the Northeast and have made their way down here. Um,
really.
a lot of transplants down here. I want to say that I've spoken to maybe one person that is originally just from Tampa, and everyone else is a transplant from somebody else. But
That's
um,
crazy.
all right, we'll get this one rolling. We're gonna just roll with another Q&A. We got some good one. I got some good ones on Instagram. Both mine and Austin's Instagram will be linked below. We put up a question box every week asking for questions, asking to hear from you guys and what you want answered on the show. So that's where I'm pulling these from. Um, Here's a good one, kind of a reflective one to get going. So this guy says, looking back on your bodybuilding journey, is there anything that you wish you did differently?
Everything. uh, no, I think what there's a few things that come to mind, but I feel like just like buying into like I'm a bodybuilder, period, and just like I feel like I dealt with like I battled that like identity, like I felt like I had imposter syndrome for a long time,
Hmm.
like starting out small and like just like not like the self belief piece was there. So like I always that's something I like to coach my young guys is just like identify as a bodybuilder, like you're different. You're very different, and like be okay with that, and like accept it. And those peer pressures of like, or just the pressure in general of like bringing meals to places and those things that like I felt like I was uncomfortable with that for a while when I first started because I was really young. Um, but I wish I would have just like if I would have just like really identified it as a body. I feel like as soon as I did that, I was such a better bodybuilder. So I just
Hmm.
was I feel like that was probably the big one. And then just like less like I did everything on my own, which was like there's a lot of value in that. And that's why I'm able to provide like a ton of value as a coach because I've taught myself literally everything. Like I haven't learned from too many people until like later on and doing some more in-depth like education stuff. But uh that would have been nice to see where I'd be now at 30 had I like got with a high level, coach at the time and things like that from the word go and just went all in, you know what I mean?
How old were you when you started? So you're 30 now. How old were you?
I did my first show at 20, so I've been 10
So
years
you
now.
Okay. But when did you start like bodybuilding where you're bringing
Yeah,
food in it? Like 18,
yeah.
19?
18. It was
Okay.
like as soon as like I played college sports for a short stint, and then like as soon as that ended, it was like learning to train like a bodybuilder, and like it, and then it was the competitive outlet from there, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it was like right there, freshman year of college.
Did you would you like miss a meal over that feeling of not wanting to have to bring your food places? Or it was just you would do it, but it was uncomfortable?
Yeah, I would still do it, but I might like step out or
Yeah,
this
yeah.
or that, and things like that, and I'm trying to think of other examples, but just like
No,
we
that's a great one.
yeah we
Just the
know of.
food.
Yeah, I mean that's a big one that people deal with, but like our mind is so powerful, right? So like when we buy into something and like have that self-belief, like it just has so much carryover. And I felt like I was like hiding the fact that I wanted to be a bodybuilder, which was because I didn't look the part yet, right?
Sure.
So that made it much harder. So, it's like I'm 175 pounds, walking around, and it's like, oh,
That,
you're a
and then
body.
if you're kind of protecting yourself, like if this doesn't work out and I don't
Sure.
take this all the way, like no one will be able to look back and be like, oh, that guy was trying to
What
do
an
this
idiot.
and gave up on it or whatever. Um,
Yeah, just societal pressures you deal with as a younger individual that like for me as I've gotten older, it's just like as long as I'm a good person, like I'm gonna do me, and if you don't like it, see ya.
Fuck off. Yeah. And it's true though too. Especially with us being around the same age. I'm 32. It was not as commonplace to
Yeah.
be into bodybuilding, to even like
Yeah.
the exposure wasn't there. Like, I started bodybuilding before I ever had Instagram or before there was Instagram.
Oh yeah.
So, it was like we just had the magazine. Like, if you wanted to find out who won the
Magazine,
Olympia,
bro.
like you either had to like go to a website and somebody was talking about it, or you waited until the magazines came out. Um, at that same age, I almost felt I probably looking back, I probably dealt with the opposite. Like I was
Yeah.
so quick to say like I was a bodybuilder. I
Cynical.
was leaning like I took pride in looking weird that I brought my food to class. Like, I
Uh-huh.
almost felt like I'm at like I almost felt like I was outwardly projecting like I'm on a different level than you guys. Like whether I look like it right now or not, like I'm willing to look like this outcast because I have certain goals, which it's not a comparison to what you went through mentally. And it
Yeah.
probably wasn't even from a place of self-confidence. It was probably just delusion, if I'm being honest. Like I absolutely didn't look the part at all.
It
Um,
works.
I was kind of faking it till I made it. So yeah, I,
That's
I guess
it.
I guess in hindsight it did. Um, but in similar to your experience, I did a lot of my probably the first half of my bodybuilding journey. I would say 95% of it was on my own.
Yeah.
Um, and like you said, there's a huge value in that now being a coach. I like to tell some of my younger guys, like, I tried this and failed so that you don't have to. Like, I
Yes.
wasted this 6 month off season, in 2015 so that you don't have to now. Um,
Bro, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I can tell you this and I can guide you in this direction because I've fucked this up before.
yeah, yeah.
And
There's
now,
so many things. There's so
yeah,
many things that and quite frankly, like just to be blunt, like I feel like my PED guidelines in terms of coaching comes a lot from my own personal experience. Just because I've tried just about everything. I mean, I can pretty much give you an answer as to what happened for me on just about it. I mean, I haven't tried like Lasix, I haven't tried DNP, um, some of like the injectable versions of some orals.
sugar-based stuff,
Yeah,
yeah,
I haven't tried some of that stuff.
exotic
Um,
drugs.
yeah, that's super, super like
Because
rare
there's a lot.
stuff. There is everything. It seems like you could get everything that's an oral now. You can get in water-based fashion to inject. But for the most part, I've tried everything, and I could tell you, like, yeah, like I get some guys because For most people, unless their body type and like their health profile dictates otherwise, I prefer kind of the lower test, higher DHT off-season model for a good percentage of my guys. I mean, my view on that has opened up more in the last couple of years, but for the most part, like if I just get somebody new and I don't really know them that well, I'm probably going to stick to something that looks like that. But that's also because I know, like, I ran high tests with Anadrol and I looked and felt like shit. I was a
Yeah,
bloated, high blood pressure mess. You know what I mean? So,
bro, just
um,
rough. Yeah,
I would say, just for me personally, it sounds crazy, but looking back, there's a couple things that I would definitely do differently. I don't think I would change anything actually in terms of like getting help or having a coach or anything, because like we said, there is that value in just failing on your own.
yeah.
I think I would put, and I've said this before, but I would put less of a value on whey protein, because I didn't hesitate to do that 2 or 3 times a day, like a shake with, or a shake, or mixed into cream of rice or oatmeal. I didn't hesitate to use that as my protein source 2 or 3 out of my 6 meals a day for a long
That's
time.
something I'd love to talk to you about, man, because I've seen you
Yeah,
just preach that a lot. And
yeah,
like I definitely have like an opposite experience with that, honestly.
really,
Yeah, like I mean, you've followed my progress the last couple of
yeah,
years, right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
I mean, off season,
And what are
man,
you
I like
doing? How many like whey meals are you doing?
it's let's see. I'm doing like I'll do 3 on training days and 2 on non-training days
Out of
out of
how
five,
many? 3 out of 6 or
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5? No way.
Yeah, yep. And in off season, I'll never go more than 3 out of 5. But yeah, that's I mean, and it's
And your growth is undeniable. I mean, I can't refute it. You know what I mean? So, I mean,
right.
you
So,
didn't
but
build yourself to the top of a heavyweight class by mistake. So that's
right,
interesting. What about digestively? Like no issues?
no issues, man. Like honestly, like I appreciate like the lower volume and like just the palatability of it. Like it just
Yeah. Oh
helps.
yeah.
It helps me just like I don't know. That's like my diet. It's like 6 or 7 ingredients,
Yeah.
and then I just kind of go sweet, salty, and I just back and
Mm,
forth. That's just what works for me, and I don't know. But I think there's a quality spectrum because I just stick to like stuff I know does sit well with me, and I don't
yeah.
like I don't like chase after these like fun brands of protein that look like they taste good and stuff. Like I use ones that like I know work well and that have worked well, but it's hard to say. Like, what if I had 5 meals of meat and vegetables and rice at for that same time period? Would it be different? Who knows?
I mean, I don't think you'd be any bigger. Like seeing your progress over the last 2 years, like how much more can you really expect to get out of it? So that's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, I was doing 2 or 3 out of 6. And it could be a variety of things. I think I was too busy on like the grip and rip side of progressive overload when I was younger.
yeah.
I don't think I
Big
was I don't think I was wise with my drug use, either. And so all this is going on at the same time. I don't know that I can necessarily pinpoint it and say it's just because I used a lot of whey protein, but
Yeah,
I also, knowing what I know now about like how slow of a process building muscle is, my thinking and why I harp on it so much, I'll just say that my understanding of it is like it's an incredibly slow process to build muscle. I got most of this from Justin Harris when he helped me, and he
sure.
explained to me like, at most, if you have a incredible week as a male enhanced uh bodybuilder, or you have an incredible month and you build a pound or a pound and a half of muscle, that means like 15 to 30 grams of protein per day was converted to muscle tissue. So it's like a tiny amount, right? So thinking about it, it's like I would just think the way it digests so quickly. It digests, according to the data, whatever, within an hour or two, depending on what type of protein it is.
Right.
And whole food. I mean, I've gotten sick before where I was throwing up the food that I ate yesterday. So to me, it's like this kind of everlasting pool of amino acids that my body can pull from to try to make muscle in this slow process, as
Yeah.
opposed to forcing it to like, hey, like this is going to be in and out in an hour. So let's like, you better pick it up and make work of it now. That's
Hmm.
how I have come to think about it. Now, is there a million ways to skin a cat and put on muscle? Absolutely. You have a completely different experience and opinion. So, um, but I
Which
think,
is good. I mean, I think that's valuable to like have those, contrary type of, because it's like you said, there's a million roads to the same destination with this stuff, you know?
yeah. And also, like, you're someone like I know I can remember thinking back, like, there's a lot of whey proteins that mess my stomach up,
Yeah.
but I can shove like real food. And it almost like I've made the comment before that it seems like my digestion has improved the more whole food that I eat. But
Okay.
again, then you make the comment about like volume, and that, on the contrary, makes total sense.
Yeah.
Like if you're getting 60 grams of protein from whey, dude, that's like a little bag of powder
That's it.
versus that might be 8 ounces of chicken breasts. It's like you do that fucking 6 times a day. Like you're eating 2 or 3 pounds of meat a day. Like that's pretty rough. That can be rough on somebody's stomach.
Yeah.
I guess at that point it just depends on what you can tolerate, what you enjoy, and what you can stick with, like anything else, like we've talked about.
Yeah.
Um, Now, last thing for me, like looking back on my bodybuilding journey, what do I wish that I would do differently? I would, this is going to sound like crazy and reckless to some people, but hear me out. Firstly, it would, if I could, I would understand like cycle design better, like per the person. Cause I was like trying to push like the usual like high test D-ball, high test anadrol, like, that stuff didn't work great for me.
Yeah.
So if I would have had the knowledge of knowing like, hey, I can keep tests a little bit lower, use some of these anabolics that don't aromatize, um, and I am someone that I have great health genetics. Luckily, I take a ton of health supplements. I spend a fortune on them. I take a ton of them, and when I go get blood work, like mid blast, it looks like I'm not on anything. So knowing that, I look back and I honestly wish that I would have taken more gear as a younger bodybuilder, because this idea of like slowly tapering it up as per your level of experience. I'm now taking the highest doses that I ever have at 32. I kind of wish that I would have taken these doses at 22, because I hear some people's experiences, they run these higher doses, they build their muscle from 22 to 26,
And
and
then
then
can
they
back
can
it
kind
off.
of back it off. Yeah, exactly. You can
Bro,
kind of,
like,
it's a lot easier to hold that muscle then. So, I'm
yeah.
still on the pursuit of trying to get bigger and fill this frame out. And here I am at 32 taking quite a bit of gear.
I I love that point, and it goes back to what we said in the last episode of like it takes less gear to keep the
Oh
tissue
yeah.
to build it. Like there's some pushing involved. I'm right there with you on that answer. Like that's where my progress has came from the last couple years is gear knowledge and a regard or just using amounts that make sense for the
Yeah.
objective at hand. So,
All right.
uh, yeah, I mean, I'm in the exact same boat as you, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when the goal is to be like a big open bodybuilder that doesn't, eventually there is no weight class. Like it's just show up as big and as ripped as you possibly can. Like, yeah, when you get to a certain level, like the doses are going to be higher. So in that aspect, I think that was probably the right way to do it, where you taper it per your size and level of experience. But like I said, ideally, I wouldn't be running as much as I am at this age. I mean, I'm lucky with what my health response is, but that's not everybody. I mean, there are some people that might look at somebody in their 30s running high gear and be like, this is, bonkers of you to do this,
Yeah.
depending on what your health response is. So, Yeah,
That,
those
I
are,
mean, that's the biggest driver, right? Is be on top of the health of it.
yeah.
If
Well, a healthy body is a productive one,
that's it,
you
that's it.
know?
Yeah.
All right. I thought that was a good question. So,
So
here's one, actually. Here's one kind of a segue off of something that we just touched on. So this guy writes in pasteurized liquid egg whites versus whey isolate powders. Which is the optimal choice? So you're someone that has had great success with whey. Then what's your view on this? Something like this.
I think like to answer his question from a high level, I think they're gonna yield a similar result at the end
Yeah.
of the day. I like that this question was asked because I almost brought it up in our conversation a second ago. Like for me, I like use those two interchangeably
Yeah.
based on like level of hunger at the given in the given phase. So like if I want a little more volume, I will use egg whites, and if my hunger is not very high, I will use more whey isolate. Those two kind of always are like an in or out for the same meal for me.
Yeah.
But I think they're both quality protein sources if you use I'll say this about the supplement industry, right? Like if you're eating egg whites or eating chicken breasts, like you're eating egg whites or eating chicken breasts. It's like the supplement industry. You're like, I don't know what the hell's in this to be frank. It's like who knows? But if it's a quality company that provides testing their products and they've been around, then you can pretty much rely on them. Hopefully, but I'll make that point about it. But for me, it's we're thinking a little too in depth there. Like
Yeah.
there's so many things you can kill yourself with analysis of every variable of bodybuilding and drive yourself into the ground. Like I'm going on a tangent, but just do the correct things consistently for a long time, and like don't worry so much about that stuff. Like if they both digest well and you enjoy one or the other, like just use it.
Yeah. No, that's a tangent's good, man. That's what the podcast is for. People want to
Yeah.
hear, like, it's not just the 60-second Instagram reel. People want
Yeah.
an opportunity to hear your full thought. I am like word for word with you. I view them, the word that you use is perfect, interchangeably. Like I look at that when either one of them is on my meal plan and it's the same thing. Like how hungry am I? Am I like, do I have like a really big craving right now to
Yeah.
use egg whites and make an egg sandwich on an English muffin or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, um, I would say the big takeaways are just that both of them are complete proteins. They're quality protein sources, like you said, given that what you're getting. With whey protein, I was broke as a college kid, so I wouldn't necessarily say it was a mistake, but I was getting whatever I could from,
Got
ShopRite, from Vitamin Shop, whatever. But there are very few after. So I worked in the supplement industry. I managed the Animal Pack brand for like 4 years, 4 or 5 years. And since then, I've been sponsored with NutriBio. Both of those companies are two of the very few that pay for third party testing of their own products, which is like unheard of in the supplement industry. Because both of those companies, just by chance, they both manufacture their own products, which many do not, and then they pay to third party test them. Most of
it.
these supplement companies that you guys are using are not actually supplement companies, they're marketing companies.
Yeah.
So there's like one or two big wholesalers that manufacture products that 70% of these companies buy the product from. So they order their whey isolate from the same place as everybody else. It comes in the flavor that they wanted with a blank label, and then they put their label on it and market it to you. So you really have no idea what you're getting unless that company is doing third party testing. So I would just say this as a general rule of thumb: you get what you pay for with whey protein. That's one of those examples that you really do get what you pay for. Um, and other than that, I just wouldn't overthink. Like, what do you enjoy? Like, what digest?
That's
If you're forcing egg whites and they ruin I know some guys that liquid egg whites ruin their stomach, ruin it.
absolutely. Yes.
If that's you, then don't bother. Like you have so many other protein options at your disposal, including a good whey protein. There's just no need to force it on yourself. Like there is not, I don't think that there is any one drug. I don't think there's any one protocol, split, exercise, protein source, carb source, diet structure, number of meals. Like there is not one thing that's must have in bodybuilding. Like it's completely, you are N of one. Like you are a completely individual experiment, basically. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to know unless you listen to your own feedback. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you. That I wish that I had more like controversial opinion on that one, but I don't. It's pretty straightforward.
Easy peasy.
Real quick, I don't know how much value this adds to the listeners, but I'm curious about you, and then I'll be able to answer it too. So, this guy asked, "What are our bodybuilding plans for this year? Do we have shows picked out?"
That's good. I don't know if I want to say it yet.
Come on.
I think I might jump in the Arnold.
Oh, sick, dude. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Okay. I was wondering, dude, because you're looking fucking tight in your pictures.
Yeah, I'm
And
heading
I'm
that
looking at
direction.
you, and then I'm looking at my pictures, and I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on here? Like I'm looking super soft compared to this dude, but that would make sense. And you're pretty heavy right now too. What are you? You're in the 240s?
Yeah, 242 right now. So I was, I just kind of concluded a health phase and I was about to push up hard.
Yeah,
Uh, but I was supposed to do the Olympia amateur last prep and
yeah,
ended up not doing it.
yeah,
So it kind of like was in the back of my head that I just wanted to like finish that prep off. And
yeah,
this is, and from a coaching perspective, you can probably relate. Like we kind of have to like put our preps in a certain spot due
for
to
sure.
increased volume and stuff. So like
Yeah.
getting this done early in the year before a lot of my guys and girls are like competing. Cause like
You'll
for
probably
body,
knock that out before anybody else is going to compete then. Like you're
yeah,
you're
I got
done for the year, and then all your clients get your attention.
exactly. So yeah, I got people starting in May. So like this is, into February. So it's just like, and I
Nice.
stayed really tight in my rebound. So I was like, I can get there.
Yeah.
I
Oh
was
yeah.
worried about that. So like I said, head in that direction, and then
Nice,
we'll make
dude.
a call soon.
Hell yeah. Well, that's breaking news right there. I love it. Love it for the
What are you doing?
podcast. I'm excited for that, dude. That's awesome. Because I've always personally been curious about doing that too. Like, of course, you have your other national show. You have your big three, like North Americans,
Yeah,
nationals, USA's. Um, but to me, even more so than like the amateur Olympia, the amateur Arnold, I always felt like there would be like a level of prestige to doing it.
bro. I've
Um,
been to the Arnold, 8, 9 times, like just to get out there and like compete at the Arnold. Like that alone is going to be really great. And if I
yeah,
can nail it, like it'll be a great, thing. And
dude,
it's
that's a killer
overall,
stage to nail it on.
I know. So it's just like I don't know. I'm excited about it, man.
Yeah, yeah, that's exciting news.
Yeah,
Um, my news is not that exciting, but um,
you just
I'm gonna
I
shoot.
mean,
I'm gonna shoot for Florida State. I'm pretty much shooting on the same timeline that I did
okay,
last year. Like I did. I initially told myself I was gonna do Florida State last year, and Tampa was the week before it. And I just drove to the venue and then drove home after prejudging. Like it's 10 minutes from my house.
right.
And I was ready. So Compton was like, let's just do, like, there's no point in holding this another week. Like, let's go ahead and do it.
It's literally right there. Yeah,
Because Florida State's like out in Orlando. So it's like maybe 2 hours to drive, depending on what traffic is like. So at the
okay,
time, I was like, fuck it, let's do Tampa. It's fucking, I can sleep in my own bed and do the show.
so
Um,
nice.
it was a cool experience. I personally, there was a couple things about the show itself I didn't love. Um, and I've heard good things about the promoter that does Florida State, Deke Warner. Um, even down as it sounds silly maybe to guys that haven't competed yet or what the case is, but down to the backdrop, like Deke Warner always does a black backdrop.
That's very
Um,
important.
it's huge, dude. Cause like I got my pictures from Tampa last year, And I liked how I looked physique wise. I don't love how I
It's
looked.
busy, isn't it?
Bro, it's yellow and blue.
It's kind of, yeah,
My
it's
skin is
crazy.
yellow and my and my trunks are blue. Like I just looked like I melted into the background.
I
Um,
hate that, man.
it was just very loud and very busy,
Loud,
like you
busy.
said. Um, so that's something small. So I'm gonna give that a try. I think also before I hang up the trunks, I gotta get like a state title where I can say that I'm Mr. New Jersey or Mr. Florida or something like
Oh,
that. And
yeah.
that's what that show is. That's the Mr. Florida. So um,
When is that?
that's at the end of or the beginning of August or mid August, I should say, like August 10th, something like that.
Okay. So what's that put prep like April, March or something?
Yeah,
Or
yeah, March 22nd, I think, because I like 20 weeks,
yeah, yeah,
just to give
20's
myself some time. So like end of March I'll start, and then the show's like mid August, and then I'm gonna leave it up. I worked with Justin Compton. I'm
yeah.
gonna leave it up to him. This past year I chose not to go to North Americans after Tampa. He felt like you'd probably be top 10, but can't really say that you'd be much better than that. So to me, I'm not going to go spend all that money and make that trip just for
It's a
that.
lot. And it's a
Um,
lot. Yeah.
so then this year, like if he has a look at me after we do this qualifier and he says, yeah, I think you could be top 5. I think it would be worth making the trip. I'm going to go. But it's kind of same idea because it's kind of at the end of the season. Like most of my guys would have already, like my fiance would have already competed. A bunch of my clients would have already competed like spring, early summer at that point. So, um, yeah,
Good.
that's it. That's it for us.
That's exciting.
Um, okay, this is an interesting one. What mental side effects or changes to your personality have you noticed from gear use?
For me, like not a ton, honestly.
I'm not surprised. You're so laid back.
Really? That's funny. I feel like I'm not, but yeah, I mean, I feel like bodybuilding kind of like in itself did that to me and
Mm,
kind of made me more. I definitely am more introverted and things like
yeah,
that. And, all those things. And then obviously, I feel like the stress of prep and like you don't quite people don't quite understand like the magnitude of like stressors you're putting on your system and then choosing not to purposely choosing not to refill that bucket to
right.
at the stake of losing body fat. And a lot of people think I'm like tripping out over the drugs, but like it's a culmination of everything. And like a lot of the reason is because your body would like to eat a little bit more food. So I think a lot of people kind of think that, but like, yeah, man, I
What do
will
you mean
say,
trip out? What are your kind of like response? Are you more aggressive at that point or
I think just being like, like tired and cranky, that's
yeah,
there's, like
par for
I
the
think,
course?
yeah, short, maybe you can be a little short tempered or, you don't want to, have too long conversations and stuff like
Yeah,
that. Just the typical. I mean, that's
yeah,
expected, right? But I
yeah.
think I would like nandrolones at a higher dosage, you will absolutely feel some neural like side effects from that as far as anxiety, definitely some sleep things there because it is much more nandrolons are much more neurotoxic. So like that will happen whether you're cognizant that it's occurring or not. Like
Yeah,
I've experienced that with like higher doses of either NPP or DECA.
yeah.
I just frankly I don't really find a use to run those at a very high doses. I will use them for certain people, quite a bit of people really, but like very low dosage. I find a lot of benefit using them at like a low amount from a performance standpoint, but like after you cross a certain line, like mentally they can be pretty harsh.
Dude, I feel like 300 milligrams or like for me, I do my shots daily. So it always comes out being like a derivative of 7. But
Yeah,
so like 280 milligrams of NPP for me is like such a killer off-season sweet spot. Like I had noticed almost nothing negative about it. My joints feel better. I feel more like capable in the gym. Um, but in terms
Yes.
of like, I think like when it's tough to differentiate, like you said, like, am I just tired and hungry from the
It's hard,
diet?
right?
Because in the off season, I'm pretty happy go lucky, and uh, I feel like pretty like easy to be around. Um,
Yes.
in prep, I don't feel like I'm that easy to be around.
Yeah.
At the tail end of prep, and I don't know. This past year, I ran the lowest amount of trend that I've ever run, to where my sleep was not affected by it, and I was
Yeah.
still cranky and kind of edgy. So it's like, is it the drugs, or am I just exhausted and starving and doing 2 hours of cardio a day, or what? Um,
Right.
but I would
We will
say
never know, right?
no, we'll never know. No. And personally, for me, I never competed as a natural, to be honest. So I don't know what my response was.
Sure.
Um, I would say, like, big picture though, like you said, I don't know if it's like the drugs or what, but I think probably just from the routine of bodybuilding, I became more like selective with my socializing, and just more than introverted. I think
Yeah.
for sure, um, I was probably a little more naturally and consistently happy go lucky before I was ever on gear. And I
Yeah.
think after, and like long term use, I'm more sarcastic. Like, I'm fun to be around, but sometimes, like, if you say something dumb or silly, like, I'm going to jump on it and make you know that you said something silly, which I think could be something like, it's almost like a muted aggression thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than the stuff that's going on in the diet, I haven't noticed a ton. I know that some people, and I think this might be why this person asked, some people can notice like big bouts of anxiety, like you mentioned, even like
Yeah.
depressive episodes. Luckily for me, that's never really, I never, I don't want to sound like I'm too cool for school or anything, but like, I've never really let myself get stuck in the mud like that.
Stay in control, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I
just
know that there are cases where, like, it's just out of your hands, and it life circumstances might have really hit you, and it kind of all hit some, a bunch of things hit you at
right.
once,
Right.
and it's tough to kind of pull yourself up out of it. Being on gear during those times probably don't make it any better, but I would also say coming off cold turkey during a situation like that isn't going to make it any better either. That could probably be pretty dangerous, actually. So
Yeah.
um, it just depends. It depends on the individual. But for me, I personally haven't experienced that stuff.
Yeah, I think with most things in the sport, right, it's in inter individual difference. But I think another thing that's probably important to bring up here is like the use of estrogen modulators to any degree, whether it's DHT derivatives or AIs or SERMs.
Right.
Like that's absolutely has the ability to factor into mental things as far as like estrogen has a lot of benefit on our on our mental. It's very neuroprotective. So I think I will notice that from time to time if like estrogen gets in a weird spot. I think that almost causes more mental swings than
Mm.
a stack design change or something like that.
So you'll notice that you're more like volatile emotionally then.
Yeah, like that can be, it can go that way or even like more depressive and things.
Mm.
So I
Okay.
think, yeah, either one way or the other, like, you can, emotions are running higher, but
Yeah.
again, it's hard to say, right? Because
Yeah.
there's so many variables involved, like what's
Yeah.
life looking like at the moment,
Right.
yada, yada. So
How's your
I think it's
sleep?
worth studying
Anything like, how's work? Like,
all of it, right? So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
think,
noticed that, not so much like in a depressive way, but I can get cold. Like, I can be like almost like remote, like I almost feel like I'm viewing things from above my body or something. Like
yes,
I'm like removed emotionally from whatever's going on. So then that comes across as pretty cold to people that you care
Yeah,
about, So yeah,
that's like
these things can be tough, man. Bodybuilding's not not always easy, not always the best way to do it. Um, let me see.
that's a good question though. I mean,
No, it is a good question. I honestly, it was a younger guy that asked too, and I appreciate him even just being self-aware enough to know, like, hey, I should be asking about this. Like, what should I be on the look for this?
yes.
Because, for me, fuck, man, I don't know an exact age, but I can tell you when I was 25 and running gear and bodybuilding, I wasn't worried about what type of psychological changes it was creating.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is important to like maintain that self-awareness, right?
For
Like that's
sure.
probably the most important part. Like you said, you don't ever let yourself get stuck.
Yeah.
That's yeah, just like kind of revisit that like perspective.
All right.
Um,
Here's one. If you're trying to grow and you accidentally sleep in, how do you approach your meals for the day? Do you skip one to get back into a good sleep schedule and wait until tomorrow, or force the meals and be full all day?
well, stop fucking up and just wake up on time. All of that. Uh, no, let's see. I mean, okay, maybe you slept in or whatever, which I
It
would.
happens.
Yeah, it does happen, but it is worth noting. You should probably place some importance on like a sleep and wake cycle. But you know, for me, it's just like get the food in. Like, if you're eating 3 hours apart, like maybe there might be a meal 90 minutes apart that day, or that's where utilizing a food swap could maybe come in handy. And if it's a chicken and rice meal, make a shake with whey and honey and banana and carb
Make it
powder, and
quick.
like
Yeah.
get the calories in. You know what I mean? But combine and say if you're eating 800 calorie meal or something, combining two of those is probably playing with fire. If you do that, like I would do your last two of right before you go to sleep that night,
Yeah.
uh, but or just spread them out at a little shorter time period. So, but yeah, eat the
This
food.
got to eat the food, dude. Like, because the key is at the beginning of this, in his first sentence that he got out was, if you're trying to grow, dude, if you're trying to grow, the food
Yeah,
must go down.
period.
That's it, period.
Yeah,
Um, like, you are going to lose like so much. It sounds dramatic, but even one meal, dude, like the intramuscular, like, water and glycogen that you're going to, like, you're going to wake up lighter tomorrow, and it might take you 4 days just to get back to where you were.
yeah.
Um,
Or like if you're supposed to train that day, like that session
right.
might be. I won't say it's going to be shit, but it'll probably feel the difference. To be
It'll be
honest.
underwhelming compared to what it could have been. Yeah,
Yeah, if you're at
absolutely.
that point in the off season.
Especially if you're at a point where, like, you're just on the cusp of reaching a new level, or you've just tipped over and you're holding a new weight that you've never held
Wait,
before. That weight wants to fall right off of you. So you missing a meal
fast.
is giving it every reason to fall back off of you. Um, I like your idea. In this situation, man, I just start pushing them together. Like,
For sure.
I'll eat every 90 minutes, especially earlier in the day. Before, like, meals 4, 5, and 6, you're feeling like super full,
Yeah.
but meals 1, 2, and 3, like, you might be able to only do 90 minutes in between them and knock them out. And then you
Yeah.
might be back on schedule. And then, like, worst case
Sure.
scenario, honestly, like you mentioned it and said it perfectly, like, all else fails, everything else, like my timing, everything else went to shit, I will just stack my last two together and shut, whether it's, if it was supposed to be two chicken and rice meals, I might eat one of the chicken and rice meals, make the other one as a shake, and then just force it and just swallow it down and then go
And
to
go to
bed,
sleep.
Yeah.
Set your
Yeah. Now, to avoid this, I will say a couple tips that I picked up over the years from guys that are more developed than me, more experienced than me, that have helped big time in the off season. One, I remember one time Antoine Vaillant told it's basically just the same idea that I already told you. But he said, like, as a consistent staple, no matter what, even if he gets up on time, he eats meal two 90 minutes later, no matter what, always.
Okay.
Um, and I saw this the other day. Nate Spear said that he sets an alarm and like he's on, he's full-time coaching, so he's not on any schedule. He said that he
Right.
sets an alarm for like 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and he'll have his meal pretty much like prepped the night before. He'll wake up,
Smash.
smash the meal. He said he'll
Go.
even do like a little 5-minute digestion walk, and then he'll go back to bed for a couple hours. And then you wake up and, it feels like you're only eating meal one at 8 o'clock, but really you're ahead and now it's already meal two. Um, so
That's a
I think
pretty good
that's,
little tactic. When you go back to
yeah,
sleep, you probably just like digest that meal really nicely too.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. That, and it's like, dude, they say sleep is supposed to be like the most anabolic time of the day. Like, man, you get your first meal down and then go back to sleep. Like, that's a nice little process. Um,
Yeah.
but I would say on as a tip for that day that you sleep in and you have to push your meals all together. I like what you said, like, food sources and trying to use quicker options. I also think that's when like something like a post meal walk is especially important,
Mm.
because then it will get you ready to eat that next meal, even if it has to be earlier than you'd like.
Yeah, I think you really got to like make sure you're on top of the other variables that day, right? To like
Yeah.
help out as best you can with digestion, like whether it's a walk after the meals or like spacing your fluids properly and,
Yeah.
all of those little things that can help with digestion. I think it's important to be on top of those, right?
Yeah. 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 You basically are waking up in a situation where you have no room for error now because you slept in. So,
Right.
uh, I think this is a good place to end it, though. We have a couple left that I can bring up next week, but
Let me
um,
ask you something
that
real
was good.
quick.
Yeah, yeah.
did did you ever eat in the middle of the night?
I used to set in college. I had a 3 a.m. alarm, but it was
Yeah.
I made it easy on myself, and it was a shake. This is what I was saying. Like with whey, like
Yeah.
I'd blend a whey protein shake, whey, oats, peanut butter, banana, have it just like on my nightstand, and I would set an alarm for 3, and I would smash it down.
That's hilarious. I did the exact same thing in
No
college
shit.
dorm room. Just
Yeah,
yeah, like
yeah,
it was like I don't remember my time, but it was middle of the night. It was a shake,
yeah,
just full of shit like that. That's just funny because you felt like I just remember that like I felt like I had to like keep that constant flow of nutrients going all the
yeah.
time. So,
Oh, I felt like I was like getting smaller if I didn't do it,
right,
dude. That, and I honestly at that point I thought that I had like hacked the system. Like
right. I'm
I don't know where I got it from. Like I don't remember who I saw it from or what
yeah,
gave me the idea to do it. But I can remember being like a month into doing it all the time and feeling like I looked bigger and my lifts were up. And I'm like, I am just gonna blow past everybody. Like they
yeah,
don't know that I know this like secret. This is like groundbreaking stuff.
that's so funny. But in reality, you were just like eating a little more, so you're filling out and
I
getting
was
bigger.
just like getting a little bit fatter, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's funny. I just had to. I was curious because I remember doing that when you brought up the Nate
Were
thing. I
you
was like, oh,
doing
shit.
you were doing whey too? You were doing a shake?
Yeah, yeah. It was
Dude,
like
I know people that have gotten up and eaten like real food.
just hounding chicken and rice at
I
2
mean, I don't
a.m.
know about you. There's times like if I'm talking like an off-season meal, it might take me 35 or 40 minutes to eat a meal. Like I'm not doing that at 3 in the morning.
No, that's the negative outweighs the benefit there.
Yeah, just sleep. Just stay asleep.
Yeah, that's much more important.
But all right, we're gonna wrap this one up.
Cool.
Anything you want to add or anything you want to plug?
No, that's all good stuff. I think those were great topics.
Yeah,
This was man, but yeah, follow us both on Instagram and get some more questions in. These that have been coming in have been good topics, but if you guys, want to talk about other things that maybe you don't see as much, I think we're pretty open with having chats about those on here. So we're pretty much an open book. So ask us questions. We have both been doing this a long time, so
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't even mind like if it's something I know some people won't answer specific questions like to your situation. Man, I have no problem using
Yeah,
your situation as a case study for us to talk through because there's always
yeah,
going to be a million different variables to talk through anyway. So and like Austin said, I'm speaking for myself. I'm an open book, man. I have no shame. I will share everything that all the
yeah,
do's and don'ts that I've done.
for
Um,
sure.
but we appreciate you guys listening. We got a pretty good response from the first episode, so hoping to see that continue. For Austin Brown, I'm Joseph Percher. This was the One More Rep podcast. Until next time, guys, we are out.